Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Monday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and it's been a week since I've recorded a video. One day after the season ended was my last video. Had some technical difficulties last Tuesday when I wanted to get a second video shot, so that didn't happen. And was out of town the rest of last week, so I didn't get anything done then either. But I'm back today. I have two things I want to talk about. Number one, the playoffs, of course. And number two, the managerial search. Since I wasn't here for the firing, I'm going to talk about Mickey Callaway's being let go and who the Mets might turn to replace him. It was an interesting week last week because as I said, I was out of town Wednesday through Friday, and I had recorded a video on Tuesday, and that video was my postseason prediction show, and also my Mickey Callaway's fate show. So I'll be honest, I was wrong about almost everything I projected. As far as Mickey Callaway was concerned, I thought he was sticking around. I did not think they were going to fire him or release him or whatever you want to call it. And as far as the wild card games, I thought the A's were going to take the Rays, and I thought that the Brewers were going to take the Nats. So I was wrong there, and that kind of threw my whole playoff prediction stuff out the window as well. But I'll go into that real quickly now as far as like who I think is going to make the playoffs and not make the playoffs, win in the playoffs, and why. And I think now that we're seeing the sort of the onion unpeel a little bit, I'm going to talk about the Minnesota Twins first. The Minnesota Twins are a 100-win team, and they don't look like a 100-win team. And I think the Mets could easily handle the Minnesota Twins. Especially second half Mets, as they did, right? They took 2 games from the Twins. Remember, they swept the Indians as well. I think, frankly, the AL Central is the weakest division in all of baseball. And, that's, it is what it is, but it's why the Indians never really rebuilt. They felt like, we have enough here, just enough here to contend. But they weren't wrong. They didn't have to go out and sign anybody and spend a lot of money there. They didn't have to do a whole lot to get to that 100-win plateau. And I'm not discounting what they did in the regular season, but look, the Yankees are making them look like a minor league team right now. I mean, the Twins are kicking the ball all over the field. They're not hitting. They're getting clubbed to death by the Yankees. So I suspect the Yankees will close out their part of the division series tonight and advance to the ALCS. Excuse me. The Astros and the Rays, a little bit different, but really the same story. The Astros are just so good, so deep, and so much better than just about any team they could play. It's going to be the Yankees and the Astros in the ALCS later this week. And the National League is not quite as clear of a picture, right? The Braves and the Cardinals, the Braves have a 2-1 lead over the Cardinals, and the Dodgers now have a 2-1 lead over the Nationals. And, the National League has been really hard to watch, right? Because, all 4 of these teams, I don't really care for any of them. And it varies from degrees of pure disgust and hatred to go away. And the Dodgers are my go-away team. And they're only my go-away team because I'm just tired of them always winning. But of the 4 National League teams, they're like the only team I can feel like I can root for. Because they're the only ones that really haven't directly impacted the Mets outside of what happened in '88, which is, long enough ago, 31 years, we can forget about it, right? And deal with the fact that, look, the Nats have been a thorn in the side for the last decade. They are the worst. I hate them. I don't ever want them to win a playoff series. All right, that's an easy one. The Braves and the Cardinals are the real challenge, right? That's the one where it's like open wounds, for me at least. I will never forgive the St. Louis Cardinals for 2006. Ever, ever, ever. I also can never forgive the Braves for being like a dynasty for seemingly like 20 years in the 90s, right? It seemed like they won every single year. And they did, frankly, until the Mets won the division in 2006. It was like the Braves. And then finally the Mets won the division in 06 and and kind of shut that down. But still, it's hard to root for the Braves too. So from a sort of like a franchise lineage standpoint, I don't know which of the two is less painful to root for. Here's my logic, right? I am rooting for the Braves. And I'm rooting for the Braves for two reasons. Number one, despite the tomahawk chop, their fans are nowhere near as obnoxious as Cardinals fans, who feel like they're the best fans in the world and who are anything but. That's number one. And number two, the Braves are young and fun and very talented, and the Cardinals have that stigma of them. They're like the Yankees of the National League. They're enough to make you want to stick your finger down your throat and throw up. So I'm pulling for the Braves. At the end of the day, I don't think it's going to matter. I think it will be the Braves and the Dodgers in the NLCS, but I do think the Dodgers will take that series. And it will end up being a rematch of 2017 Dodgers and Astros. And the Astros are going to win again. So tough luck for the Dodgers, who are the Buffalo Bills of Major League Baseball. Moving on, as the Mets did from Mickey Callaway. Earlier this week, or I guess last week now, the Mets, of course, made the announcement that Mickey Callaway was not going to be brought back to complete his third year of his contract. Kind of sucky news for Mickey. Like I said, I really thought they were going to keep him, only because of what he did in the second half with this team, and how this team not only didn't quit for him, but seemed to be willing to run through a wall for him. And that's rare. And that's not something that you can, acquire in a new personnel. It's very hard to find that and duplicate it. Not impossible, but it's very hard. And that was the reason that I justified his returning. I, in no way, shape, or form, believe that Mickey Callaway is, or perhaps ever will be, a good in-game manager. So the decision to move on from Mickey, clearly the Mets feel as though the handful of games that Mickey cost the team, and he did cost the team a handful of games this year, bullpen notwithstanding, because the bullpen was certainly culpable for a lot of losses themselves, but had Mickey not made the blunders that he made, this team could have overcome its horrendous bullpen and been in the position that the Nationals are in right now, early leads giving them up in late innings with the bullpen against the Dodgers. But regardless, the decision to move on from Mickey was made, and there's like 97 names being bounced around. But look, the bottom line with this is my opinion. This is what I said last week on the show that couldn't be recorded. If the Mets do decide to move on from Mickey Callaway, and I said I didn't think they would, but if they did, I felt as though they would go with a veteran manager. And at this point, I double down on that. There is no capacity in which the Mets should be bringing on another rookie or inexperienced manager. Forget the rookie part, but just any inexperienced manager cannot be brought in to lead this team. The window to win is very small. The window to capitalize on this young core of position players in conjunction with this pitching staff that the Mets have is very short. Maybe 2 years at the best case scenario, right? So they need a guy who's going to be able to come in from day one, steer the ship in the right direction, control the media, and be able to manage both these young players and have them cultivated, and also manage a relationship between the front office and the dugout. And of all of those characteristics, I think there's only one man for the job, and it's Joe Girardi. Joe Girardi has to be the next manager for the Mets. Now, one of the other names that's being bandied about is Carlos Beltran, and another is Luis Rojas. And my suggestion to the Mets here is, since Jim Riggleman was, of course, released as well, Riggleman being the veteran bench coach who was supposed to help Mickey, and I don't know that he did, but Riggleman's gone too, so the Mets in turn, I think they'll hire Girardi as the manager, and the smart play would be to hire either Beltran or Rojas, one of the two inexperienced bench coaches, and have them sit under the learning tree of the experienced manager of Girardi, and have them basically do for the bench coach what Houston did for Alex Cora when he was the bench coach for A.J. Hinch in 2017. The best way for one of these guys who's inexperienced to learn is to learn on the job, but not underneath the spotlight. not as the manager, but as the bench coach, involved in every decision, understanding every decision, being a part of making those decisions, but not being the guy that has to sit in front of the media and defend the decisions. That's something that Joe Girardi can do better than anybody else. And he'll do it in a Bill Belichick way, where he's just very matter of fact. He's like, this is what I did. It is what it is. And he won't tell you more. And the media didn't like that about him, but too bad. So that's my 2 cents as far as the manager goes. I want to see Girardi as the manager, and there's no alternative. There can be no alternative. If the Mets are serious about winning, Joe Girardi is the guy for the job, period. And as far as that bench coach role is concerned, again, I think a young, fresh mind like a Luis Rojas, like a Carlos Beltran, excuse me, nothing wrong with either one of those two guys being named the bench coach of Girardi. As far as the rest of the staff goes, I think the Mets should be bringing Phil Regan back. There's no question about that. What Phil Regan did with the pitching staff in the second half was remarkable, and whether it was related to him or not, don't mess a good thing up there. I would keep Phil Regan, and on the same token, I would keep Chili Davis, because this offense was potent last year, and there's no reason to change any of that. So, what does the rest of this week hold for Driving with Mr. Met? Well, not a whole hell of a lot, because for the second consecutive week, I'll be out of town. So this will be the only show I'll be able to get to this week. Sorry. But the good news is by the time I return next week, the NLCS and ALCS will be underway. The division series will be over, and we'll know who the final 4 teams actually are in Major League Baseball's quest for the World Series. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about any news that's come up about managerial candidates and hirings. The Mets are not going to make any decisions till after the World Series is over, of course, and they're certainly not going to announce anything until after the World Series is over. But we'll keep our eyes peeled nonetheless, and if anything comes that's newsworthy, we'll talk about it next week. But until then, thank you for watching. I appreciate it, as I always do. You can follow me on Twitter, where I will do my best to keep up with Mets trivia while I'm away, and I really shit the bed on that last week, so sorry. I'll do my Mets trivia as best I can. Interact with me there. Or, of course, you can interact with me on the video in the comment section on YouTube below. So, until next week, thanks for watching. I will talk to you guys soon, and as always, let's go